So it's 2025, and I wanted to sort of kick off a little bit into 2025, of course, with a video about what I want to see from Ark in 2025. So let's get straight into it. Obviously, I want to start by seeing the Genesis expansions come to ASA, but I'm sure that will happen this year, which will be nice just to get that extra additional content. But now that we've got that little bit out of the way, I would like to see, firstly, a lower performance setting available for Ark Survival Ascended. You might think, oh, well, the low settings are low enough, right? Well, I don't think that, and I don't think a lot of people would think that either, because a lot of people are still struggling to run the game. And you might just say, well, just get better hardware then. It's a new game. I think lower settings should be supplied, and this is sort of an ideal solution for wildcards, as in a way, I'm not saying, oh, optimize your game, although we'll get onto that later. I'm saying just add some lower settings for people that really need it, because if people really want to play the game still, then they should have the option to play the game even if they're on lower end hardware, and lower settings would do that, and I think that that should be granted to all the players of Survival Ascended. So let's get on to that optimization thing that I was just talking about then. I do want to see optimization fixes, especially around the performance and general stability of the game. Firstly, the game really isn't optimized that well, with stuttering all over the place with things loading in. And I know this was an issue with the first game, but they did say that they were going to fix this for the second one. And this year, I would like to see some improvements made. Maybe not a perfect fix to all of the stuttering issues. It is Unreal Engine 5 after all, but still a sample perhaps, or just an improvement, I really should say, in, you know, ASA's stuttering issues, because it does happen quite a lot, and it's an issue which I think needs a solution. And if they optimize the game a little bit more, it could get those stuttering performance issues out of the way. But I would also like to see some performance improvements generally overall, because I know the game for sure could run a lot better than it does already, and there's a lot that can be done in generally improving the performance, and this all just takes developing time. And sadly, this is the one which I think out of all of them is going to happen the least, as Ark isn't really the game that gets optimized, and ASA is even less optimized than ASE. But continuing on from the optimization mess, I want to see NVIDIA frame generation back in the game for people who want NVIDIA frame generation, because it is superior to FSR frame generation, and the option to turn frame generation off, please, wildcard, because you removed that feature from us and you broke frame generation. FSR frame generation, it's not even working properly how it should, and you're sort of faking your game into performing better instead of actually optimizing it. People might say, well, that's a valid solution, really. It makes the game get more FPS, but it makes, you know, the time graphs all wrong, and the frame time graphs just don't match up with it all. It's a really odd circumstance for PC players, so I want the option of that, please, because it is an issue really that needs to be fixed, and NVIDIA frame generation needs to come back for the people who wanted NVIDIA frame generation, because frankly it gets rid of a lot of the ghosting issues which is present with FSR frame generation. I would also like to see FSR present in the game as well. I think when AB released, FSR was briefly in the game with DLSS, but since that there's no option for it anymore, DLSS is the only option. If we could have some FSR functionality, not just FSR frame generation, that would be great as well, because FSR can be used by a wide range of people too, not just people with the high-end NVIDIA graphics cards or RTX graphics cards, really, because that's what DLSS is supported on, of course. And, you know, it adds a lot more options for other players, along with some lower settings. Some FSR for people would be great, especially considering it's a very GPU-hungry game, as well as a CPU-hungry one, but an optimization thing can really resolve some of those issues on top of all of that. And also, this is the thing which I don't want you to add, wildcard. Please do not add ray tracing to this game, because it is already hard enough to run, and if you want your community to hate you more, then you'd add ray tracing. So please do not add ray tracing to this game. It is so much of a struggle to run for so many people that I think, you know, that should never be implemented into this game, and frankly it doesn't need it. It looks good enough anyway, so that's all fine. But I would like to see an option to remove a lot of the foliage in the game. While you've done a great job, wildcard, with all of your foliage and all your varied moving foliage, I still think I want an option to remove most of it. And you did have that option in Survival Evolved, and I'd like to see an option similar in Survival Ascended, as it is one of the main things which is getting the performance down. And obviously you can stop the foliage from moving and just walk through it like you would in Survival Evolved, and that does make the performance so much better. But an option to remove quite a lot of it would be great in, you know, a lower settings mode as well. And also a lot of PvP players, I think, would benefit from things like this as well. So please give us an option to remove the foliage. I think that would be an extremely useful one in my opinion, because it would be used by a lot of players to gain more performance out of the game, and could be quite great in certain PvP scenarios, which I think renders it quite a useful addition as well. And on top of all of this, I'd like to see some more support for Survival Evolved in 2025. And although I really don't think this one's going to happen, and you know, it's a bit of a wild card. Oh, funny pun there. But I would like to see some things coming to Survival Evolved as well, like perhaps some of these new creatures maybe. And you know, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with this one, because they're like, oh, it deserves to be on Ascended. It's Ascended's selling point. But they have sort of split their player base with these two games, and Arc 2 is obviously going to be the next step forward, if that even really happens at this point, if it's so delayed now. But I would like to see some of this stuff. Maybe not Bob's Tall Tales on Survival Evolved. I think Bob's Tall Tales can stay an extended and exclusive, but I do think some of the nice new creatures should be added at least as mods for Survival Evolved. But a lot of console players would want to get their hands on them as well, so if they could be added into the options menu and you could turn them on or turn them off, that would be great. And also just further bug fixes for Survival Evolved, as it still is not a perfect game. And I know this is me sort of knick-knacking a little bit now, and this is the thing that I least want to happen out of the things that I've mentioned today, but I would like to see some more support from Wildcard on Survival Evolved. And you know, a lot of you are probably going to disagree with this point again, so feel free to leave all your comments in the description, but I would like to see some of this stuff come to Evolve. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, and frankly it won't, because of company resource time and all of that. And you know, they've moved on. This is the next thing. At some point you do have to put Survival Evolved to rest, but there are still lots of people playing Survival Evolved. If everyone moved over to Ascended, I wouldn't be saying this, but so many people, just because they don't have the hardware for it, or just because they don't like the ethics of the game, or they just don't want to buy Arc again, they are staying with Survival Evolved. And I think more support should be added for all those players who are still playing Survival Evolved, because I am one of them, myself included. And that's why I also do want this as well. Again, I think Bob's Tall Tales can stay an ASA exclusive. I think that should be the main selling point, considering it's a pay thing really, and the Bob's Tall Tales creatures can stay with ASA as well. But all the ones that are coming with the new maps, I think I would like to see in Survival Evolved. But that about wraps it up for this video. I want to hear all your thoughts and opinions on all this stuff. Again, I don't think my last point will be particularly popular, especially with you ASA players, but I want to hear, what do you want from Arc in 2025? Because I'd like to know all your thoughts as well. That's been it for me today, and I hope that you all have enjoyed. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye. And give it up for our patrons, Ekaterina Puchkova and Karina Thorne, Dominic Macy-Jewski, sorry about that name, and everyone else that's on this list. All the people I've mentioned are paid members, and if you feel like that's something you want a shout out at the end of the video, go join the Patreon or become a paid YouTube member.